In this lesson, we're going to discuss the different types of evaluations that you may conduct when trying to select the best cloud service provider for your organization's needs and requirements. Now, after you've completed your cloud assessment, it's going to be time to choose one or more cloud service providers, and then you'll do this by considering the specific criteria for selection that your organization is going to use during your evaluation phase. Now, this criteria is usually going to be defined within an RFI, which stands for a request for information. But you could have additional requirements that exist outside of your documented RFI as well, in some cases. Now, there are several types of evaluations that can be used, including pilot programs, success criteria, benchmarks, proof of concept, proof of value, and reporting. Let's take a look at each of these. First, we have pilot programs. Now, a pilot program is a small-scale project that tests the logistics, proves the value of the migration, and reveals any weaknesses in your upcoming deployments. The pilot program is a great way to test a specific service or application before you fully commit to it. Now, the steps of running a pilot program include a couple of things. First, defining the project's objectives. Second, selecting participants and evangelists. Third, designing a test plan. Fourth, establishing a means of feedback. Fifth, creating a communications path. Sixth, conducting the pilot deployment. And seventh, evaluating the results. Let's consider a real-world example of a pilot program. Let's pretend that Dion Training wants to develop a new learning management system known as an LMS. And we want to do this and host it inside of a cloud-based environment so we have this ability to scale up or scale down as needed and control all of our costs. Well, Dion Training could conduct a pilot program to test the system before we roll it out to a larger group of all of our users. Let's walk through each of these 7 steps of the pilot program and take a look at what it might look like. Step 1. Defining the project's objectives. Our company is going to set out clear goals for the pilot program, such as testing the system's scalability, security, and the ease of use. Second, selecting participants and evangelists. We're going to go ahead and select a small group of teachers and students from a different school or district to participate in our pilot program. These participants will be the first users of our system, and they'll provide us with feedback on its functionality and usability. Third, designing a test plan. Our company now needs to design a test plan to ensure that the system is meeting the defined criteria for success. This can include testing the system's ability to handle large amounts of data, testing its security protocols, or evaluating its ease of use. Fourth, establishing a means of feedback. Our company needs to establish a way for all of our participants to give us feedback on the system, such as through surveys, interviews, or other methods that we might want to use. Fifth, creating a communication plan. Now, our company needs to create a communication plan to keep all of our pilot program participants and our stakeholders informed of the progress and the outcomes of this pilot program. Sixth, conducting the pilot deployment. Our company is going to conduct the pilot deployment by providing the selected teachers and students with access to our systems and then monitoring its performance. And seventh, evaluating the results. Dion Training is now going to go ahead and evaluate the results of our pilot program and analyze the feedback from our participants, as well as identifying any issues or areas for improvement. By conducting this pilot program, Dion Training is going to be able to test the system's functionality and usability, identify any potential issues, and make the necessary adjustments before we roll it out to a larger group of users. This can be really helpful to ensure a successful deployment and adoption of the LMS in the future by making sure that we have a small group of users, maybe 10 or 20 or 30 users trying it out before we move on to a larger group of several thousand users, or ultimately our entire student base with over 1 million students. Next, let's talk about success criteria. Success criteria is the way to measure whether or not a project meets its objectives. It is defined in a series of key performance indicators known as KPIs that are usually going to be related to our organization's overall strategy. Now, measuring whether or not these KPIs were satisfied is going to help us to determine the success or failure of our pilot program. The success of the pilot program can be defined in terms of a proof of concept, proof of value, or both. Now, let's take a look at some real-world success criteria that we might use for our learning management system pilot. First, the system must be able to handle a minimum of 1,000 concurrent users without any significant performance issues. Second, the system must provide a minimum of 99.9% uptime. Third, the system must integrate with existing student information systems and other educational software used by the company. Fourth, the system has to provide a secure environment for storing and managing student data that is compliant with the relevant data protection regulations. And fifth, the system must provide a measurable improvement in the student engagement as reported by the teachers and the students. Now, these criteria provide us a clear and measurable way for us to evaluate the success of Dion Training's new Learning Management Systems pilot program. By meeting these success criteria, Dion Training can be confident that the system is ready for full deployment and will provide value to the organization and its end users. Next, let's talk about benchmarks. Benchmarks are a method for businesses to gauge the potential outcome of a specific change by comparing their current results to the standard performance in their industry. This allows them to determine if they're in line with their competition or performing better than their competition. Additionally, benchmarks can also be applied to internal processes by comparing them to established industry standards and identifying areas where the company deviates, therefore allowing them to make informed decisions based on whether or not to adjust their policies. A great real-world example of benchmarks might be in terms of our learning management system. Let's take a look at a couple of benchmarks. First, adoption rate. The adoption rate measures the percentage of users who have adopted and are actively using the new learning management system. A high adoption rate indicates that the learning management system is easy to use and meeting the needs of our users. So, if the industry benchmark is a 60% adoption rate within 1 year, we can then use that to see if Dion Training's LMS is performing better, worse, or at average as seen across the rest of the industry. Second, uptime. Uptime is used to measure the percentage of time that the learning management system is available and accessible to our end users. A high uptime rate indicates that the learning management system is reliable and that users can access it when they need to. Now, if the industry's average benchmark is set at 99% uptime, we may choose to set our own success criteria at 99.9% uptime, which means that we're going to outperform the industry average by 0.9%. Now, at 99% uptime, this means the average industry LMS is going to be down for about 52.5 hours per year. But if Dion Training can maintain a 99.9% uptime, then our LMS would only be down for 8.7 hours per year, making our system 6 times more reliable by using a 99.9% uptime instead of using an industry average of 99% uptime. Third, we have data security and compliance. Now, data security and compliance is used to measure the learning management system's ability to protect and secure student data and its compliance with relevant data protection regulations like GDPR, HIPAA, or FERPA. Now, for example, if the industry benchmark is 95% compliant, we might aim for a compliance rate of 99% instead, so we can be above that industry average. Next, let's talk about the idea of a proof of concept. Now, a proof of concept, or POC, is a type of evaluation that tests the functionality of the deployment and ensures that it is technically sound. For example, a company that's evaluating a cloud service provider for a cloud-based storage solution could conduct a proof of concept by testing the functionality of the storage system by uploading and downloading files, testing their security protocols, and evaluating the ease of access to the data they've been storing there. Let's go back to our learning management system example with Dion Training. Let's pretend that Dion Training wants to do a proof of concept for their LMS. They want to test the LMS's ability to support integrating with the organization's cloud-based student information system. In this case, we could create a proof of concept by setting up a test environment that simulates the production environment of the LMS and includes a sample of the student data, and then configure the LMS with the student information system to be able to communicate with each other and see if we can exchange data properly. If we do that, we can then test our integration by performing a series of scenarios like creating new students, updating student information, and viewing a student's grades, and then we can evaluate the results of the test to identify if any issues or areas for improvement have been discovered. Notice, what we're focused on here is if the system is working properly when we're conducting a proof of concept evaluation. Not that everything works 100% properly, but that it at least works basically the way that we think it's going to, and it proves our concept that this is a good idea to keep investing money into. Now, on the other hand, we could also choose to use a POV evaluation known as a proof of value evaluation. Now, a proof of value or POV evaluation is going to be used to evaluate the value of the deployment by measuring its benefits such as cost savings, time savings, and extended or additional services. For example, a company can use a proof of value evaluation to be able to determine the value of a solution by comparing the cost savings, time savings, and other benefits of their cloud-based storage solution against the company's current on-premise storage solution. If they find that it gives us better cost savings or it's more efficient and timely, then it would be a proof of value that is positive, and we would say, let's go ahead and move into that system. Let's go back to our Dion Training learning management system example. We could perform a proof of value evaluation to determine if our new learning management system should be migrated to the cloud, and the proof of value evaluation is going to help us determine if this migration is financially and operationally viable and wise for us to pursue in terms of its return on value to our organization. During our proof of value evaluation, we can compare the total cost of ownership, known as a TCO, for our company's current on-premise learning management system with the total cost of ownership for a cloud-based proposed learning management system. We could also measure the time savings for the deployment, provisioning, and scaling of the cloud-based system, as well as evaluating the additional services provided by the cloud-based infrastructure, such as automatic updates, high availability, and disaster recovery, and see how all of that compares to the old system that was on-premise. Then, we're going to be able to measure the performance and scalability of that cloud-based system by using benchmarks and user feedback, as well as evaluating the benefits and drawbacks of the migration in terms of cost, time, and additional services. Basically, when we're doing a proof of value evaluation, we are really trying to determine if the service, system, or process is more efficient in terms of time or less costly in terms of its financial impact to our organization. Finally, let's discuss reporting. Now, reporting is the process of providing information about the status and progress of a project or initiative. This helps organizations to keep track of their progress of their migration, identify any potential issues, and make the necessary adjustments. Reporting can include many different areas, including compute, network, and storage reporting. Compute reporting is the process of providing information about the performance and utilization of compute resources, such as servers, virtual machines, and containers. For example, if Dion Training is piloting a cloud-based learning management system, we might use compute reporting to measure the performance of our virtual machines, including their CPU and memory utilization, to ensure that the system can handle the appropriate number of users and their associated workloads. Network reporting is the process of providing information about the performance and utilization of network resources, such as bandwidth, latency, and availability. For example, in the pilot phase of the new Dion Training learning management system, we might opt to utilize network reporting to measure the availability of the network resources and the latency of the system to ensure that the system is performing well and that the users can access the system with minimal delays. Storage reporting is the process of providing information about the performance and utilization of storage resources. For example, during Dion Training's learning management system pilot, we might want to use storage reporting to measure the amount of storage space being consumed by the system to ensure that the system is not running out of storage space and to make decisions on the future storage capacities that we may need to add to the system. Reporting is considered to be a crucial aspect of a pilot program, proof of concept, proof of value, and other types of evaluations because it provides valuable information that can be used to evaluate the success of a program and make decisions for the future of your organization's projects.